Good evening, my fellow friends, my fellow neighbors, and my fellow shining stars. Isn't this so adorable? Welcome to the next trolley stop. The next trolley stop is now. Welcome to episode number 83 of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series. My name is Jonathan Masiulionis, the president here at Empowered Publicity. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you are and wherever you may be. Shortly after 7 o'clock Eastern Time, July the 6th, we're officially into the 7th month of 2020. Some people want to push the fast forward button on 2020. Some people want to enjoy everything in the present moment, sometimes a little bit of both, so to speak. For all of our friends and neighbors and shining stars on the West Coast, especially those out in San Diego, shortly after 4 o'clock Pacific time, we hope that each and every one of you across the country had a safe, blessed, and happy 4th of July holiday, a wonderful Independence Day holiday weekend. And we are continuing on with the 6-year anniversary celebration of Empowered Publicity. I am so grateful to all of you for all of your support of Empowered Publicity, for all the children's authors that we've had the blessing of interviewing, spotlighting, showcasing over the course of the past 6 years. And most importantly, for all of the work that you are continuing to do for the children of the world. If you are simply reparenting your own inner child, if you have a little one or a couple of little ones on your end of things, if you are a teacher, principal, librarian, and you're very much a custodian for the children today and helping them to nurture their minds and their hearts, which is a very big task as of right now, especially leading into the forthcoming school year, which is just a few weeks away. Thank you to all of you for what it is that you are doing for the children. It's hard to believe that it is episode number 83, right? Just seems like just a few days ago was episode number 50. There's a reason why I mentioned those two numbers, which, by the way, if you are playing bingo tonight, your lucky numbers tonight are 6, 50, and 83. That will get you good bingo here at Empowered Publicity. Supporting kids to speak up for themselves, specifically at an early age, sets the foundation for them to be an advocate for themselves. We're seeing many people across the country and around the world, ranging from children all the way to the big kids, speaking up in different ways and shapes and forms right now, especially with everything that's happening amid our current climate. Speaking up is a skill that will help our little ones in future relationships, in friendships, in work, and in the community especially. Speaking up is how all of us, we solve problems, we fix injustice, and we create change in the world. There's definitely a lot of that happening right now, especially, but in a world where children are often shushed, many big kids too, it can be challenging to support our little ones to speak up for themselves. But thanks to one of our favorite neighbors and a brand new children's book, children are now able to discover that there are so many different ways to speak up and make their voices heard, which, of course, one of the most highly anticipated children's books of 2020. It is now available courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Houghton Mifflin Harcourt and Clarion Books. Award-winning children's author. You saw her just what seems like 5 minutes ago on episode number 50, but it was a little bit, it seems like 10 lifetimes ago, right? That was episode number 50. But joining us is our featured guest here on episode number 83 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, the award-winning author of the brand new release, Speak Up, Miranda Paul, joining us from the beautiful area of Wisconsin, where it is warm. Some people think that Wisconsin, it's just, cold and snow, kind of like Buffalo. So, Miranda, so good to have you back aboard the program. How are things with you this evening and this week?
Great. It's hot here. It's warm and hot. I think the last time we talked, I don't know that it was that warm.
I think it was the fall, if I'm not mistaken, actually. Yeah. Which it's when that's when in Buffalo and in the Wisconsin area it can be a little bit dicey. I'm super excited for you. Congratulations on the release of this book. And I know that we were just talking in the Empowered Publicity Green Room how the timing of this book is very interesting because there's a lot of people, children and adults alike, that are speaking up. Speaking their truth. And sometimes, many of us, we were, as I mentioned in the introduction, especially as children, we were told, not now, be quiet, those sorts of things. But to kind of peel the veil back for those who just kind of, go to Barnes and Nobles and Amazon and pick up children's books, the process of creating a book takes a little longer than just a couple of months for the most part, especially if you're going through a large major publishing house. This is a very deep book. It's not the typical, like, with all due respect, it's not Babar, it's not corduroy. It's something that kind of, confronts something that is very important, especially in today's society. Could you take us back? Could you share with our friends and neighbors, our listeners and viewers on the process of putting this project together, and really why you felt it was important to be able to share with children, especially right now?
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me. And I also want to give a shout out to Ebony Glenn, who is the illustrator of Speak Up, because she made this book very accessible. So even though it seems like a very deep subject, it's accessible in every household, no matter what you're going through or what kind of kid you might have, a shy kid or a bold kid. When I was younger, I was particularly shy when it came to asking questions to adults, or speaking my mind, or even raising my hand sometimes at school. And finding my voice over the years led me to realize that my voice is important for advocating for myself, first and foremost, and then also advocating for other people. And so when I was writing Speak Up, I was thinking, I went back sort of to myself as, maybe a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, when I would get that really tight, clenchy feeling in my throat when I had to talk to a grown-up or explain something that I thought, or maybe if I answered a question, was it going to be wrong? All of those things. Sometimes it was easier to just be quiet and to not speak up, because it can really produce a lot of anxiety if you speak up and then the other person doesn't necessarily receive your question or your thought with acceptance. And so when I was thinking about that myself as a shyer kid and how I found my voice and the ways that I found my voice, other instances in my life came up, such as being the new kid at a school and having to ask, can I sit with you at lunch? Walking into the cafeteria. Other things like the first time that I had attended a rally for Speaking Up, it was an environmental club rally. And I went back to that moment of everyone sort of speaking up on why the river was very important and wanting to make sure that the river where I lived didn't get polluted. And then I had an incident also happen with my son. And my son, who was in school, one day, another student brought a weapon to school and told my son that he had a weapon in his locker. And my son was faced with, do I tell on my friend, or do I keep his secret? And, balancing that when you're so young. He was very young, in elementary school at this time. And he chose to speak up. And the teachers did find the weapon. Everyone was safe that day because he spoke up. And so as parents, we're constantly telling our children, like, we might repeat ourselves many times, but I always told them, if you can keep someone safe, or if you can make things better, it's important that you speak up. It's important. You won't be considered a tattle. You won't be considered someone who blurts if you keep someone safe. And that was one of the instances that you'll see in the book as well, about if you know a secret about someone getting hurt, that is a time when you need to speak up. So
it definitely sounds like that's very close to home then for yourself. And I feel that just, things are changing by the day so fast, and it seems like we're further along than where we used to be, but we're still kind of tackling some of the same issues. Like, there's a lot of comparisons with what happened several weeks ago with the police brutality, the beginning of the Black Lives Matter movement. And people are kind of looking back to, when Dr. King shared his I Had a Dream speech, and some people wonder, have we made progress, right? How do you feel when it comes to speaking up that we have made progress? Because it's very easy with kind of what's happening right now to focus on the negative side of things, what isn't working, talk more about the problems than the solutions. As a parent and also as a children's author as well, too, how do you feel that we have made progress when it comes to learning to speak up for ourselves, and especially as parents, caregivers, and custodians of our children? how have we been able to be in a better headspace and heart space to be able to help our little ones with that?
Yeah, well, here, you can come see one of my little ones right now. You should. Okay. This is my little one, but he's not so little anymore. You gotta go so you can see yourself on the screen. Here he is.
How are you?
I'm good.
Your father celebrated his birthday yesterday, did he not?
Yes.
Yes, and it's his grandpa's birthday today.
Oh my God. Well, then we're going to have to say hello and happy birthday to your grandfather during our happy birthday portion of the Empowered Publicity.
We will have to. So as a parent, you were asking me, about progress and about speaking with our kids. Without progress in this society, my husband and I wouldn't have a family. We wouldn't have the right to be married, and we wouldn't have the right to live together, because it was just, it was 60 years ago. It wasn't even 60 years ago that Loving versus Virginia happened, and that gave all states the right for the citizens to intermarry in interracial marriage. And so I think about our first date that we had in Maryland. If we had been alive and our parent, if that had happened when our parents were little or our grandparents were meeting, we wouldn't have been able to get married and live together at the place that we met. And so we acknowledge that there's been a lot of progress. We're saddened that, the progress maybe isn't happening always as quickly as we'd like to see that progress happening. But speaking up, and what people are doing now are recognizing that some of these issues and some of these steps toward equality have pretty much happened yesterday. Like, they've just happened. They've happened one generation or two generations ago. Some of the, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act. And so speaking up is important. It's built into our First Amendment. Like, that is our right. Our right is to be able to speak up, to be able to march, to be able to petition, to be able to demonstrate. And so we're always optimistic. If you're out protesting in the street, you have to be optimistic that we've been moving the needle forward and progressing, because otherwise you wouldn't be out there speaking if you didn't believe that it could make change. So I think that anyone who's demonstrating or protesting right now is showing that, yes, of course, we do make progress as a society, and we have, or else it would be a waste of time to go out there and voice your opinion.
I think that one of my favorite expressions goes, and I'll paraphrase it, something to the effect of, it's important. The only time that you look back is to see how far that you've come, right? And really where our attention goes and where our mindset goes is where our time goes, and so on and so forth. So it's very important to focus on the solutions to the problems and focus on moving forward. The illustrations that Ebony did in the book are absolutely fantastic. I actually want to share one of my favorite ones, and I'll read the passage if I may. When a rule, it's very, very filled with a lot of timing. When a rule just isn't fair or has gotten much too old, speak up, work for change. Justice comes when we are bold. And you see how all of the children are really doing their part to kind of, take a look at history and do their part to be able to change things. When it came to putting the illustrations together, again, to kind of peel the veil back, sometimes there's not a super, you talk to your illustrator every day sort of relationship. It's just kind of like the illustrator does their thing. You have to trust that they understand the heart, the intentionality, and that everything comes out the way that it's meant to be. Could you share with our listeners and viewers, with our friends and neighbors, about the experience of working with Ebony and really having these illustrations to be very authentic and genuine and very heartfelt? Because when you're talking about the message of speaking up, you're really talking about something that's from the heart and from the voice as well, too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just got to meet Ebony virtually for the first time last week. So the book was done before we really got to meet face to face. We met like this on a virtual platform. And what was fascinating was Ebony so it's a group of school children, and it follows them throughout a school day. So obviously this was illustrated pre-pandemic, and they're getting on the school bus and going to school in the regular way that hopefully we will get back to in some way. And every character sort of has a story. And she took some of her own experiences, like I did writing it, and put that into the illustrations, right? So there is, a new kid standing there with a tray in the cafeteria on the one about kindness, right? If you see someone who's lonely or they've had or they're having a bad day. About kindness going a long way. That when she's got, this kid who's the new kid in school. And so you can follow the story in the pictures of these kids from the beginning of their school day till the time that they're picked up. And you can see just in a day, 10 ways, maybe in one day, accessible to a child, that your voice could make things better for yourself or for other people. Just in a single day. And I think that's really the empowering message that she was able to put in there, is personalities. She was able to put children that really are reflective of the children that we see when we go out into schools, and do it in a way that it doesn't feel overpowering or really didactic. In light of all the political protesting and the fact that this is a political year going on, the way that she's done the illustration is it's accessible. It's just very, very accessible. It's very vibrant. The colors are so bright and inviting that it is just encouraging when you read it. You can read it and just feel encouraged. And her illustrations are so much a part of that. And the stories that she's made. I mean, the story about telling the truth, like if you look in the pictures really tell the story about, when you hear something, it's not true, speak up, state the facts, truth can open up your view. And you look at the pictures and you get a clear example of how that could play out, at recess, right? Of a rumor happening, but you have to look at the pictures. So there's a visual literacy component as well. So it works on one level, just reading the poem and sort of being inspired that way, but it works on another level completely because of her illustration.
One of my other favorite illustrations I wanted to share for our friends and neighbors here is the passage where it says, "Rally others, nature needs our mindful voices." Mm-hmm. One of the beautiful things that we're seeing right here is that, the children are taking the time to actually, pick up the trash, so to speak, but that they're also nurturing the earth, right? Mm-hmm. Because, with what's happening right now, children are very intuitive. They were intuitive before kind of all this happened. Now it's like they're really in tune kind of on what's happening. And I'm really curious, and I'm sure that we'll kind of unpack this further later on in our Children's Book Spotlight series here, Time Together Tonight. But I really feel it's so important that we're doing our part to do the right thing for our children, if anything, because, there's a lot of times right now we can get sucked into many different rabbit holes right now. There's a lot of different rabbit holes. There's a lot of drama out there. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of chaos, right? And we can be called to something and follow our head and not necessarily for our heart. Just from your perspective, you can share as a parent, why do you feel it's important to be able to do the right thing, especially for our children, and do it in a very aligned way, so that they can really understand it very clearly?
Well, this is a big question. So my husband and I, we really try to model our beliefs and what the way that we live in how we parent. So, for example, if we're going to be doing something that's out of character, our kids are going to catch it and go, "Hey, that's not who we are as the Paul family," right? And so I think in the books also it's the same thing of showing that one voice is important, any voice. It doesn't matter whose voice it is. All of the kids in the book have a voice, have a role to play, have something they either need or have something they can contribute. And that's how we feel as parents, is that our kids have something to contribute that we can stop and listen to, that sometimes we're wrong as well, and we can admit that. And there is a really important spread in the book. Actually, I want to show it if possible. And of course, it's showing school kids. But I think that this can really speak to anyone, especially to grown-ups. So it's right here on this page. You can see here they're eating their lunch, and it just says, "When you make a small mistake, even if you didn't know, speak up, say you're sorry, learn to listen, learn to grow." And a lot of times when we think about speaking up, we think about shouting for change, protesting, like the big sort of speak up ways. But saying you're sorry, admitting that you're wrong, and then stepping back to listen, reflecting on yourself inside and learning to grow, that listening is a part of speaking up. Listening is a part of being an ally or being an advocate. If you really want things to change, we all have to look inward too, and we have to admit, even when we didn't know that something was wrong. So growing up, obviously, white, there were a lot of words that were thrown around when I was a kid, and I didn't know that some of them were wrong until I was much older, or that some of them were hurtful, or that some of the things or policies that I participated in or believed were hurtful to certain groups of people or individuals. And as I learned, I said, wow, I've been a part of that. I've made a mistake. I've learned something, read something about it, and I can grow from there. It doesn't mean if you've said something or done something offensive that you're necessarily a bad person. But if you don't reflect on it and learn to listen and learn to grow, then it's never going to get better, right? We're never going to work toward a society where people are getting along and things are fair or just or equal in that way. So
it's actually interesting that you mentioned that, because I know that it seems that, we're living in a society right now where everyone has an opinion. It seems that society has become more judgmental than before. And there's this, some people call the cancer culture movement, or the culture, the cancel culture movement. How, like, if someone has done something that, certain people might be offended at, from a small degree or a large degree, it's just like trying to erase the person's existence from reality. And I feel that it's very important, and this is where, in order to be aligned for all of us right now, thoughts, words, and actions need to express themselves evenly, because otherwise then things aren't balanced. Again, for those of you who are just tuning in, all of our friends and neighbors, our listeners and viewers, welcome to episode number 83 of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlights. Here's one of our favorite neighbors, Miranda Paul, award-winning children's author, is back aboard the program here this week to share her brand new release, Speak Up, courtesy of our friends at Houghton Mifflin Harcourt and Clarion Books. You can check out Miranda's official website, which is in the comments below, by the way. It's mirandapaul.com. Very simple. And we're also sharing Amanda's Amazon link as well for Speak Up. So while you're on Amazon, you can feel free to leave a 5-star review for Speak Up if you feel guided to do so in the process, because that's just one of the many cool ways how you can support children's authors this summer and leading into the second half of 2020, which we're already now in. One of the other great things that I love about your book, as well as children's books in general, is that they have a very open-hearted, soft energy. And when it comes to difficult things to talk about or controversial subjects, right, it's like, if you have a choice, CNN or a children's book, I'm probably going to go with the children's book versus CNN more than likely, right? Every platform serves their purpose, but why do you feel, Miranda, this is kind of putting the children's author hat on and the parent hat on, why do you feel that children's books are really a trusted platform? They're really a go-to place for parents and educators right now to really share important messages with children versus the other sorts of media and platforms that are kind of out there. Why do you feel children's books are something that's stick out for many of us right now, especially to be able to talk about these important subjects and topics?
Well, children's books are a tangible item, unless you're reading it, obviously, as an ebook. It's a physical thing, and for young children, like the age who would read Speak Up, having a physical thing, physical object to touch, that tactile feeling, first and foremost, is something that grabs attention, can hold them in a different way, activate the brain in a different way than, say, a screen would, for example. You also have the fact that children who can't read yet will be doing that with an older sibling, a parent, someone that they love, maybe a trusted grown-up, one of the helpers who's going to allow them to use their voice, who's going to listen to them when maybe otherwise they're not always listened to. Someone is sitting down with them, having that time with them. For kids who are getting it maybe from the library is one of those places that empowers, the First Amendment, right? Speaking up. So whether they check it out from a library or go to a bookstore, these are places in our community. So just the process of getting the book and sitting down and to reading the book is activating different parts of our brain, maybe our heart, before you even crack it open. Then when you crack it open, you've got something that's been worked on generally for years before it's come out, and there's a whole team of people who have worked on it. So, sometimes you see at the end of a movie, you have the same thing. You have a huge team, right, who's worked on a very small thing. It's the same thing in books. And these things have been created to last. They've been fact-checked and copy edited. And a lot of people have sat around in rooms thinking, is this the most empowering thing for the aged child who's going to read it? Is this the best for the child? And then you have librarians, teachers, reviewers who vet it as well. And they put their feedback on the book out there. So a book in many ways goes through processes that not everything else, especially when you're talking about maybe news or social media, doesn't go through like this sieve sort of before it gets posted. But books do. It's a lot slower process. And then there's also the language, right? It's something that can be read aloud, something that can stick with you. I don't set out usually to memorize any of my own books, but because of the cadence or the fact that I've written them as read-alouds, once you've read them a couple times, the language is chosen in such a way that it's easier to remember lines. I mean, a lot of people have asked me what's their favorite book or to recite a quote from a book. They're going straight to something they read as a kid because it's stuck with them, because the language is just shaped in that way to stick with you. Even if you can't read the words on the page, you're going to remember it because of the way that it's written as well. And then a shout out to all of the people who write books for children and teens. These are some of the people who have the biggest hearts, but also have some of the best research chops out there. I think that we fly a little under the radar as children's authors and illustrators, especially those who are doing nonfiction research or doing sort of social emotional learning books, is that there are some really fine human beings making books for children and caring about children. Because by and large, for the most part, people aren't in it for big money, especially when it comes to picture book writing and not illustrating. It's not a huge money maker, at least not for me. But I mean, I do well, but overall, I think that there's just people who really, really care about children and study what's going to help them and are willing to listen to them and delight them at the same time. And that's where I think a book has a lot of advantages over other sort of quick kinds of media. That being said, I have nothing against news channels or CNN. I don't really know if I believe whatever is going on, what this word cancel culture, I don't even think that really exists. I think if it means that people are getting called out for saying stupid stuff, well, they probably should get called out. Maybe, I don't know. Especially if they're in a leadership position, they should be thinking about their words. So I just think that books are a slower process. And right now, online, like social media, is a reactionary, quick thing. And I think that's the biggest difference, is that there's a lot of forethought put into one, and there might be like a different purpose in reacting so quickly with the other.
Children's books, they're also very simplistic at their core. They can be simplistic and also, go very deep, so to speak, right? So I think as adults, especially, we tend to take life way too seriously, right? And this is why I'm starting to believe even more and more how children's books are actually meant for, the big kids, right? And that the answers to many of our problems can be found in the form of a children's book, which also, to one of our favorite friends and neighbors, John Parra, John Parra, multi-time guest here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. If you would like to be able to learn more about Miranda's work, of course, you can check out episode number 50 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, which is available at empoweredpublicity.com, and the videos on demand section on the Empowered Publicity Facebook page. And of course, one of the best children's books from 2019, which seems like 10 lifetimes ago, Little Libraries, Big Heroes. It is also now available, so you can head on over to Amazon.com or again, Miranda's official website, MirandaPaul.com, to purchase your copy and to leave your review in the process. when we hear the term speak up, a lot of terms, they can have like a buzzworthy connotation, right? It's or a hashtag connotation. Speaking up really has a lot of depth to it. How do you feel that speaking up and self-advocating impacts all parts of a child's life?
Well, I know when I was younger, and you see it in movies sometimes, is when an adult is telling a child, speak up. It's not usually the nicest thing, right? It's usually like that kid is too shy or quiet, or maybe that kid is being reprimanded for something, and they're telling them to look in the eye and speak up. What did you do? Speak up, right? So I just wanted to turn that around and tell kids, speak up in an encouraging way, right? In a loving way. So speaking up, it just starts really simply, like you said, where speak up means so many things. It doesn't have to be that, hey, you're too quiet, be louder, right? It can mean so many things. So it just starts like this. There are times we should be quiet. There are days for letting go. But when matters seem important, speak up, let others know. With so many ways to speak up, like a sign, a smile, a shout. If we could make things better, why not let our words come out? So kind of an invitation here that if you know you're going to make things better, or you think that you can make them better, and that could be for yourself, for someone else, for your whole class, maybe for an animal, the environment, that's really the guiding principle, is if you're really trying to make things better. Not that you're trying to necessarily get someone in trouble, or that you're trying to just have everyone look at you and get attention, right? If you're trying to make things better, let those words come out. And then it goes through a whole bunch of scenarios where that could be. And in the back, it also has a guide for the super shy kids who aren't ready, maybe, to speak up. So we've got a whole guide at the end, still finding your voice. Here's some ways to speak up without saying a word. So we have a whole list of things, a guide to maybe when it's okay to be quiet and let it go, and when it's important to speak up, let others know. And then some really empowering profiles of kids, real kids who spoke up in different ways, all kinds of different ways. From the kids who invented the friendship and buddy bench, to you've got Malala Yousafzai, you've got a whole bunch of kids in there speaking up on different issues close to their heart.
Thank you for also showing those other passages from the book, because I feel that, again, one of the great things about children's books is that they're open to interpretation. Again, depending upon where a little one is at on their path, or a family is at on their path, it can really provide even more insight and more help and assistance and support to someone, especially for our little ones if they're going through something challenging right now. We talked about listening earlier in our conversation. And I feel that, sometimes it's very easy to look at a child and just say, it's a kid. What do they know, right? And I feel that children a lot of the times are wiser than us. And a lot of the answers to our problems, like I am not a parent yet. At some point in time in the foreseeable future, I do feel that I will be. But it's interesting how sometimes we're like, if you have a problem as a parent, right? Or maybe you're kind of going through something's wrong, quote unquote, right? Or so we tell ourselves. And then our little one comes in and it's like they give us the answer to the question, or, the love to heal the wound, whatever the case might be, right? What is the importance you feel of listening to little ones now and doing it in a respectful fashion, talking to them, talking with them versus talking above them or underneath them?
When I was younger, I had someone who very much treated me like an equal, a grown-up. And it still to this day, I'll never forget the day when she gave me her phone number and said, because she knew I was going through something rough, and she said, if you ever need someone to talk to, I will help you. I can see that maybe you need someone to help. And just treated me like a friend and handed me a piece of paper with a phone number. This is obviously before cell phones and all that. Handed me that, and I felt like I was being treated like I mattered. And that moment still today empowers me. And I think that kids, so a lot of times when I'm out at schools speaking, doing school visits, I'll eat lunch with a group of kids. And we'll sit down and they're like, wow, she's eating the school lunch with us. I've got my hot lunch tray and I'm eating what they're eating. And I'm sitting at, sometimes my chair is very small. but I'm sitting on it with them, right? We're all on the same eye level, and they're like, should we call you Miss Paul? I'm like, just call me Miranda, and they can't believe it. And for some of them, I get a lot of letters that just said how much, that meant to them in terms of empowering. So I think the importance of listening to kids or being sort of on their level is just that. Sometimes the smallest boost in your confidence when you're young can set you on that path, right? Whatever path it is that you're supposed to have. And I think that all kids deserve to feel confidence in some way. And a lot of kids are lacking in confidence for whatever reason it is. It could be societal, it could be something in their family, or it could be something, within their personality or inside, that they're very introverted and they don't feel necessarily confident out in the world. And so just treating them like an equal can do that for them in many ways. And so this particular book, I don't know if you looked at all the pages, but if you open up the beginning page before it even begins, there's a little dedication page. See that here? So you can see there are 11 names, and it says, to the students I met at Indian Hill Elementary who spoke up and asked for their names to be printed in my next book. And their names are all here, and it says, you are you and you belong. And so that group of kids, I made a promise to them, and I made good on my promise. And I think that they spoke up. That was probably pretty brave for them to ask, the big author that was coming to their school district, and they got chosen to eat lunch with me. Then to ask, do you think you could put us in a book? And here it is. And now, shout out to Omaha Public School librarian Deanna Riley, who's getting 11 copies of these books to these 11 kids so they can see their name in the book right now. That kind of thing, whether it has an impact or not, I may never know. But the thing is, if I just keep doing that, just keep treating kids like they matter, maybe some of them who didn't believe that before will believe that, because it's absolutely true. We say the kids are our future. They are, but they're also our now. Look at how many kids are speaking up, making change, doing all kinds of things, even at the school where my children go, speaking up to start new clubs that didn't exist. They want to have it. They're speaking up to some of the cars driving by the school or speeding, going fast, speaking up to make sure that we have some resources to remind drivers to slow down, all kinds of ways that kids can and do already speak up. So we can listen to what they're already doing.
I do have to say, Miranda, from my heart to yours, that is one of the most heartfelt stories that I've heard in 6 years here at Empowered Publicity. Just the whole story about, eating lunch with the kids and eating exactly what they're eating and just conversing with them. You could come in and be like, I'm award-winning children's author Miranda Paul. Look at me. Here's where I am and here's where you are, kind of thing, right? And that just shows the fact this is one of the similarities between yourself and John Parrott. I converse with John every now and again. We communicate on social media. And one of the things that we always talk to ourselves about is the importance of staying humble, right? Because it's very easy that when you have all of this success, it can kind of go to your head, but it's so important to remain grateful and appreciative and grounded and humble, because then, if you're, you can learn something new every day from someone that may seem like, that they're not an award-winning author. You can learn something from a custodian. You can learn something from a firefighter. We all learn from each other, especially from our children. Again, for those of you who are tuning in, we are beginning to wind down our time with award-winning author Miranda Paul, one of our favorite neighbors here at Empowered Publicity. We are sharing her brand new release, Speak Up, courtesy of our friends at Houghton Mifflin Harcourt and Clarion Books. You can head on over to Miranda's official website at mirandapaul.com, which is in the comments below. You can also head on over to amazon.com to be able to purchase your copies of Speak Up. In addition to Little Library's Big Heroes, while there, you can feel free to leave a 5-star review for both books in the process. Again, the Amazon link is also in the comments below as well. And we do encourage as well, if this message has been opening up your heart, if it's been providing some inspiration, some love into your life this evening and this week, whether you are watching us live or if you are catching us on the replay, the archive edition of episode number 83 of the Children's Book Spotlight, we encourage you to share this on Facebook or your favorite social media platforms of choice. One of the things that I really love about the children's book Spotlight series, especially during our anniversary celebration, our 6-year anniversary celebration, is to be able to provide tangible tips, tools, and strategies for parents and for educators to kind of, it's like, okay, hey, I was watching Miranda and Jonathan, and they talked about this great stuff. How can I implement this into my daily life, or the daily life of my children? So 2 specific things come to mind. Could you share some simple strategies to teach little ones to speak up for themselves? I know some of the ones you may have alluded to in the book, but is there a few specific ones that actually come to mind in terms of simple strategies that you'd like to share with our friends and neighbors and our listeners and viewers tonight in this week?
Yeah, first thing that can be is the whole idea of speaking up or talking can seem like a heavy subject. So if that is, if you don't have a lot of talks like that with your kids, start with something easy like gratitude. So there's a spread in here about speaking up when you're giving something neat or you're having a good day. About gratitude is something we can start with speaking up. And I think a lot of parents do. But then there's also, on the very next spread, you have a girl who's really feeling sad, right? So when you're sad or packed with feelings and the world seems dark and gray, speak up, ask for help. Friendship chases clouds away. And so the whole idea of having, this is where picture books can be a great tool, is you can say, what do you think happened? Where do you think the girl is hiding, on the playground? Talk about the picture. Like, what do you think happened to her? What do you think these girls are thinking or seeing? What could everybody in this scenario sort of do? And you might learn something about your own child when they say, oh, well, maybe this has been said to her, or maybe she's feeling this way. That will probably reflect something that they've felt or they've felt inside. And so it's a conversation starter. When you have, let's see here, I'm not sure if it's closer to the beginning or if it's right after this. You have a page here about knowing a scary secret about someone getting hurt. Speak up, tell a grown-up. Courage sometimes means you flirt. So you can start here and get some language like, what would be some things that would be hard to tell a teacher about? Or what do you think a scary secret is that she could know about someone getting hurt? And so sometimes a kid might come up with an idea, and sort of where their frame of reference is then, where they're coming from. So you're not necessarily introducing a lot of new scary ideas if that's not already in their head, but you can also find out maybe what is already in your child's head, or what maybe they have heard, or what they do know. I think it's, for us, in our families, always important to talk about things rather than to ignore it, because if you ignore it, they're going to hear words elsewhere, whether that's on the news or the radio or at school or somewhere that you're not there. So I always try to be proactive when we talk about things. We talk about what it means to be an ally. We talk about what racism is. We talk about prejudice. We use these words at home so that they know what that is, how that relates to history, how that relates today, so that at least for our kids, they're sort of prepared. Unfortunately, we have experienced that as a family and each of my kids individually when they're not with us. And so talking about it ahead of time gives them the language that they can to sort of get themselves to either to safety or to be able to deflect something away that makes them feel safe in the moment. So I think it's just really important. If it's not talked about at home, they won't know what to do if they encounter a situation where there's maybe a bully at school, or maybe someone is using language that isn't appropriate, or calling someone else a name. But if you've talked about it, then they're going to have some solutions. Maybe just some things, some phrases. They can stand up and say, "That's not okay." Whatever it is, something very simple that they can say or do if they are in a certain situation.
We've shared some information for our little ones, and I think it's also important to be able to share information which we've kind of interspersed throughout our time together tonight for the big kids, right? For parents and for teachers, or simply if we're many of us are reparenting our inner child right now, because in order to be an even greater parent, you got to be able to take care of the little one that's inside you, because then it reflects in all of your external relationships. what are some, and especially since children are like sponges and they pick up on every single thing that we say and do, right? It's kind of like they've got those antennae up. What are some effective ways for parents to be role models for their children amid the current climate? I share this because it's very easy. Again, emotions can be heightened. Situations are a little bit different than just, what was the usual norm before the beginning of March. So I feel that especially parents who may have felt that they've been like pulling their hair out over the course of the past several months, that very much that they could benefit from hearing what it is that you have to say when it comes to effective ways to be role models for their little one or little ones amid the current climate. What would you like to say about that?
Yeah, I think so. Being a role model obviously has its benefits. Doing, not just talking about it, but doing it. But like, for example, when you put your mask on to go out, at least where I am, the numbers are going up again, sadly. But if you put your mask on to go out, tell them why you're doing it. Tell them that this keeps other people safe, right? When we breathe in and out, like here it's winter all the time, so when you breathe out, you can see, respiratory droplets, right? So we know that we breathe out. So if you put your mask on, saying, I'm doing this because I care for our community, and it will help reduce the the spread of this virus that's going on. So explain if you're not, like, if you hear a word that's not right, maybe explain, we don't use that word because it demeans people, or because this word was used as a weapon, or because. So give them a reason. Kids are smarter than we think. If we just tell them not to do something, but don't tell them why, it's sort of authoritarian, and it kind of kicks up that, well, there's no reason why. But kids are very caring inside, and if they understand why you're doing something, like what principle, in your core values that we're doing something, that makes the ask or the explanation just so much easier for them to grasp. And if you want them to comply with something, telling them why. And it seems like such a simple piece of advice, but I find that in if I just tell my son, like, go clean your room or whatever, if I tell him, we have an ant problem right now, I need you to clean your room because we don't want them to chew the baseboard or something, that's like, oh, okay, there's a reason why. It's not, obviously we should all clean our rooms to have a clean room, but there's reasons why we keep things clean, right? So giving a reason along with the behavior or the ask can really help.
And I think especially the more that we take the time to do the inner work for ourselves, and especially if we are parents, right? Whether you have one little one or several little ones, right? It's so important because then they'll pick up on those really good qualities, and they'll also pick up if they see mommy and daddy, whether it be expanding their knowledge, learning a new language, or let's say if a little one is seeing their father who was an alcoholic shifting and becoming sober. They're seeing that their father is taking positive and proactive steps to be able to become a better father and to just really have a better overall quality of life. So I think that that's important. One of the things that I wanted to briefly touch upon, and I talked about this with Rocco Staino, the host of Kidlit TV Storymakers last week. He's got the best bow tie in all of Kidlit, let me tell you. We talked about how right now this summer it's almost like a bridge, where it's like we have kind of what happened in the spring in the rearview mirror, and there is, what could look like some uncertainty for the future, right? And you already have, educators that are starting to plan the school year. In certain areas of the country, it's literally just going to be like 3 weeks away, 4 weeks away, right? For others, it's, after Labor Day sort of thing. When it comes to where you are, how you feel, what would be some words of comfort and reassurance that you would like to share for both parents and educators that are excited about the school year and they want to do everything right for their kids, but that also don't want to get sucked into the fear and the drama and the chaos? Because it's very easy. Like, one of the things that really, I sound like an episode of The Simpsons. I think Homer Simpson talked about grinding, like what grinds my gears, he would say, right? Is that, we're already talking about things in November and December. And yes, for all we know, this whole thing could be over with tomorrow. More than likely it's not, right? But I feel that if we project out our fears into the future, what we put out is kind of what we get back. So what would be some messages of comfort and reassurance that you can share with the parents and educators that are tuning into this week's edition of the Children's Book Spotlight Series to want to do things right for their kids, and really how reading and children's books and children's literature kind of helps to kind of soften that. So if there is some sort of unease or what's going to be happening, children's books provide an amazing resource to be able to help the little ones if they are going through something, amid what is and what are these next steps.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked a little bit in the green room about the idea of the unease in some ways. For a number of communities and people in our country, the unease has been here for a long time, right? There's been a lot of upsetting things that have happened, shared fear, fear that has come on, incidents, whether it's incidents of health issues or issues of racism have come on. And then the pandemic and shutting, the safer at home orders have sort of thrown a lot of people into what could be seen as like the same boat, right? Everybody's sort of life has been upended, no matter what community you're from this year in 2020. And so I think the message here is that everybody's going through something right now. That might look different, household to household, but the unity of it is our country and our world. We've been through all of these things before, right? We've been through them, and we can look to models of what has worked in the past. We can also look to models of what hasn't worked. And we can feel a little bit reassured that our experts and our technology is better now than it ever has been, and our forms of communication. So if we look at what unifies us, and if we look at what's working, and if we listen to the experts, people who have literally been studying whatever it is that you're afraid of, right? Go to the experts. They will tell you what you need to know, how to keep yourself safe, or how to progress forward, or how to care for our children. And the thing is, books don't go anywhere. Remember, they're tangible items. So the books that you have, the books you can order online, most libraries are doing some sort of curbside pickup or some ebook delivery. A lot of children's authors have stepped up and have online readings of their books. Books are not going anywhere. So no matter what happens in August or September, or when your school is supposed to open up, it's probably not going to look the same as before, and that's okay. For many people in our history, we've gone through times like this, and times like this have ended up shaping us and our beliefs to move through to like a new era. So we have to remember that some of the things that we're looking at is like fear, like deep-seated fear. For some people, it's really just inconvenience, right? We're not necessarily this isn't right now World War III or something like that. It's something where we have fears and children have fears. But if we as parents are ignoring it, or we are just pretending like everything's normal, our kids are probably going to pick up that we're not being genuine or authentic, right? So we can start now preparing them for a fall that maybe isn't going to look exactly like every other school year. But we can start talking about that now, and we can start listening now, and we can start finding ways to make sure that our part as parents, in terms of making sure they're well mentally, that we're nurturing that, is just as important as the academic side of things. That on the other end of it, that they make it out, okay mentally as well as academically, right? Because the teachers are there for a lot of kinds of support, and teachers are always thrown a lot more than, teach my kid what's in the book, right? Teachers are always concerned with that. We have to remember that as parents, like, it's hard. It's not easy when you're working from home. You got kids, you're trying to homeschool, you're trying to work, you get, Mom, I need a sandwich, whatever is going on. It's not easy, but there will be another side of this. There will be eventually. I don't know how long it's going to take, but if we work together, if we listen to the experts, if we listen to groups of people who maybe aren't getting their full rights and realization, and we work to maybe dismantle some of the systems that aren't working, that are producing some of the fear in many of our citizens. We actively work together toward causes. We'll get through it on the other end, and we'll all be better for it. And so, I mean, that's just really how it comes down to. If what it takes for us to, as a society, to get through this pandemic and to make some structural changes in our country, if what it takes is all of us listening to each other and, stopping some of the judgment and really just listening to the experts who've been doing the work, that seems like a very small price to pay to quicken sort of the results of this and get our children, back to school. Or maybe even there's a new normal at school that's even better than it was before. The things that sort of blindsided us when the pandemic hit. Now, I think if it happened again, hopefully we've got some more systems in place, right? And so just always think there's another side. There's another end where we're coming out of it, right, from the other end. It can't last forever.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because, I feel that over the course of these past couple of weeks or so, for many astrology buffs, they may call what was the past several weeks eclipse season. So many people have been referring to how it feels like there's a lot of endings that are happening right now. But on the other side of endings are new beginnings, right? And I always, people have called me the world's biggest optimist or one of the world's biggest optimists for a long period of time. And I really feel that what has been happening in the world has been allowing us to really take a look at our own lives and say, what hasn't been in alignment and what has been in alignment, what has been working, what hasn't been working, and to really create the kind of life that we want to have for ourselves. And thus also, what is, if we could close our eyes and envision what is the kind of life that we want to have for our planet. We're seeing a lot of good happening from this, whether it be with, neighbors coming together, right? Albeit maybe in more of for the time being, a socially distant, form and fashion. You're seeing, just people, come together. You're seeing people, that are very open to changing their beliefs or just being open to new things. And if anything, like parents have said this for a long period of time, Miranda, I want to spend more time with my kids. But it's interesting because parents, they would do everything not to spend time with their kids. They'd have that extra meeting or that extra trip or whatever the case. And then it was just kind of like they had to get stuck with their kids, right? So children have been reading more. Parents have been spending more time with their kids. So again, sometimes it may take a long period of time to kind of look at the silver linings, but I don't think that necessarily has to be the case, which, by the way, before I forget, for all teachers, librarians, and principals that are interested in facilitating a virtual visit for your school in the fall or the spring of 2021, I'm starting to get used to saying 2021 because it is going to be a fantastic year, but so is the second half of 2020. You can check out Miranda's official website, again, at mirandapaul.com for more details. One of the things I think that we had the opportunities to do in our previous visit together, and that I always love to do throughout every children's book spotlight series, is Mr. Rogers. This guy, of course, right? He reminded us many different times to take the time, and I think he did this when he accepted his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Daytime Emmys. He encouraged people to close their eyes for 10 or 30 seconds and remember those that helped to love them into being. So you already mentioned those 11 school kids that you had the lunch with earlier on in our time together tonight, right? And they definitely helped love you into being, especially with the release of Speak Up. Your husband celebrated his birthday, so there's no doubt that he helped love you into being. But obviously, I'm not going to answer. I'm asking the question. You're answering. I don't want to do. I'm asking the question and giving the answers. Who would be some of the people that you would like to recognize tonight in this week that helped to love you, Miranda Paul, into being?
Wow, there's so many people. Absolutely, just so many people. So, my family members. Today's my dad's birthday. And my mom is probably watching this somewhere. If you are, hi mom, hi dad, if you're watching. I have a lot of aunties, like a lot of them. And my Aunt Lynn and my Aunt Mary sewed masks for us at the beginning of the pandemic to make sure that everyone in the family had one. But going back, they've done things like that. I had some aunts who gave me my first piano lessons when I was a kid, because I couldn't afford it. And for my birthday, they gave me a certificate. I've had just so many teachers that have been so supportive over the years. I went to a really small elementary school. I can't remember if I talked about that the last one, but all of you who are my teachers, especially Teresa Schmidt, who came to my book signing on Saturday, one of my former teachers, who was my voice teacher of all things, right? She taught me how to sing and some of how to act on stage. So my teachers, definitely. I also want to give a big shout out to anyone who works in healthcare right now. I was sick a lot as a kid with strep throat and ear infections so many times, and just getting care from doctors and nurses, and then seeing doctors and nurses now that I know and how they're putting, they always put their life on the line and long hours, overnight shifts. It's amazing. People who work, in hospitals and in healthcare. I just have a lot of appreciation for all those people. I want to thank my kids. My kids always make me a better person. They're so open and have just such a close-knit family that I just love. I love hanging out with them. They definitely helped shape, who I am. Father Bob, if you're there and if you're out of the hospital, hi, I don't know if you're watching. Father Bob traveled all the way down to St. Lucia for baptism and my wedding, so that we got married, and he was there, and he's not been doing so well lately, but every time you ask him how he's doing, he doesn't say I'm fine. He says tremendous. So one of these days I have to write a picture book just about this word tremendous, right? And he lights up a room, and he knows everyone's name. Like in our whole church, you know everybody's name, like without fail. So just so many people that I have to give shout outs to who shaped me. I could go on forever. This would be like the long Emmy speech, and the music is already going, right? Long time ago. Your 3 minutes is up or whatever. I'm always grateful for everybody in my life that has, even those who've set me on a path that I thought I didn't want to go down, who knew it was the right way or something.
I feel that the second half of 2020 has got a lot of blessings in store for you and for your family, Miranda. No doubt 2021 is maybe going to be the best year ever for you. One of the things that we also love to do at the conclusion of all of our children's book spotlight series, there's always what's to come, right? Because, we went from, Little Libraries, Big Heroes, which again, fantastic book, one of the highlights of 2019 and all of Kid Lit. And then of course, 2020, we had Speak Up. Could you give a little bit of a sneak preview on some of the things that you have that are in the works, and hopefully when some of those times come, right, they'll be at book festivals, right? Where people congregate together in groups of more than 50 without wearing a mask. Remember those things? I feel they're going to be coming back in 2021.
Yeah, so I've had a lot of things booked this year that got canceled, and I've got a lot scheduled for next year. I've got international travel scheduled. So please let's curb this virus so I'm allowed to travel internationally, because right now I don't know if that's going to happen. But I've got a book next year coming out about space. So like interstellar space. So you want to see like nebula, where stars are being born, where stars are dying. If you want to look at some of the things, black holes, that kind of stuff. So it's a very poetic, exploratory journey when we start leaving our solar system, like what's beyond that. So that comes out in the spring. And then I've got, I don't know that it's announced yet, but I'll tell people there's a follow-up or a companion book coming out to Speak Up. And it's called They Didn't Wait. And it's about real kids speaking up for change. So really excited for that. So it's real kids around the world and things that they've, ways that they've found their voice and ways that they're speaking up, and just a whole host of different things, like really amazing kids, helping people in their community who may be homeless or don't have enough food to eat. And it's just amazing, watching all these kids either advocate for themselves, advocate for people in their communities, having big hearts. And I think it will empower other kids to know that, it's one thing to strive to be something when you're older, but you can also make a difference in someone else's life right now if you want to, if that's something that moves you. So So that's coming out. And then there's 2 more projects, but I can't announce them yet because they're really big and like they'll be announced soon, I think, and you'll see them. They're of an environmental nature. They just haven't been announced yet. So,
well, that's perfect. It's an environmental nature. It's a wonderful cliffhanger, so that when you come back aboard, because I think that John always jokes around with me because he's been on the program, I believe, like 3 times or 4 times. So it's kind of like Saturday Night Live is like the 5-timers club. Like you get the crushed velvet robes, right? So when you become a 3-time member or a 3-time guest in the children's book spotlight series, I'm wondering what it was that John got for his special gift. Maybe it was something Mr. Rogers related, I'm not sure, but we do have a special gift for your father, along with there's many people throughout the course of our wonderful country and our beautiful world that are celebrating birthdays this week. And one of the things that we love to do here at the children's book spotlight series is to acknowledge all of you, our neighbors, that you're lovable, you're special just the way that you are. And especially if you're celebrating your birthday, that you're even more amazing than you realize. So your father's name again?
His name is Kip.
Kip, K-I-P, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so to Kip, to some of our other favorite neighbors, Joanna Dezekin. Joanna, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. One of our favorite neighbors from California, used to work with Oprah Winfrey. Great guy. Heart-centered, amazing soul. LeGrand Green, one of our favorite sisters, Henrietta Goth Ellis, is celebrating her birthday, along with one of our favorite neighbors, what seems like 10 lifetimes ago, from the world of professional wrestling and sports entertainment, now one of the best motivational speaker for kids and students across the country, Mark Merrow. One of the things that we used to do is we actually would sing happy birthday in Spanish. And now I actually found there's actually a special birthday song that Mr. Rogers actually created, which seems like eons ago. But I think it's a perfect time to kind of crack that out, right? So happy birthday, dear friends, we sing to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. We thought we'd try to tell you how we love you on your birthday. We thought we'd try to sing and dance and play today. We wanted to surprise you on your birthday and say, we love you every day, not just today. Happy birthday, dear friends, we sing to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. I bet that your father probably wasn't figuring that he was going to be serenaded with Mr. Rogers on his birthday. So we hope that that opens up his heart and puts a smile on his face. Now, this has been such a tremendous experience. And if you're new to the Children's Book Spotlight series tonight and you're like, wow, this 6-year anniversary celebration is pretty amazing, right? The energy is fantastic. Just wait until next week because, of course, we like to talk about Mr. Rogers every now and again here on the Children's Book Spotlight series and the Storytime with Mr. Jonathan, courtesy of an introduction that Miranda actually made, what seems like 10 lifetimes ago. Caldecott award-winning children's author Matthew Cordell is going to be joining us next Monday evening, July the 13th at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, for episode number 84 of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight series as we continue on with our 6-year anniversary celebration. We're going to be sharing his brand new release, Hello Neighbor, The Kind and Caring World of Mr. Rogers. So yes, anytime that we can talk about Mr. Rogers and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, as well as talk about a brand new children's book and kind of weave them all together, right, and not have to force it, it just kind of happens, we're totally excited about that. And this is, of course, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Holiday House Publishing. So again, Matthew Cordell is going to be joining us. We'll be sure to pass along your sentiments because I know that Matthew thinks the world of you in the process. So that is going to be happening next Monday. But prior to then, of course, we'll be returning with another all-new edition of the Empowered Publicity Storytime with Mr. Jonathan, which this Thursday will be going to, fittingly enough, where Mr. Rogers hung his hat for many years. Go to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, one of our favorite neighbors at Empowered Publicity, Diane Scavolone, one of our featured children's authors. We will be sharing her brand new release, Rulers Don't Measure, and we'll also be sharing Mr. Rogers' valuable lessons on self-worth. That'll be this Thursday, July the 9th at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. A little sneak preview of Rulers Don't Measure. The journey of life can have its challenges when we are not sure of what to do or how to do it. Sometimes we compare ourselves to others. At times, we judge ourselves as not measuring up. As you'll read in this inspiring story, the character, who, by the way, It's a ruler. How adorable is that? A ruler, the lead story in a children's book, absolutely amazing. The character, the ruler, does a lot of comparing as he tries to find his way. He encounters some interesting situations and learns a great lesson in the end. He learns how he wants to rule his life. And of course, one of the things that we talked about in our time together tonight is the importance of leading your life with authenticity, integrity, compassion, love, kindness for yourself, as well as for our fellow neighbors out there. So especially when our little ones are kind of tuning on in, they can emulate us in the process. If this message has inspired you, if it's brought healing into your life, if it's simply made your day, if it's completely shifted the energy of your entire 2020, if you're like, wow, thanks to Miranda and Jonathan, 2020 has some sort of saving grace. Hallelujah, right? We encourage you to be able to share episode number 83 of the Children's Book Spotlight series on Facebook, or if you are watching us on YouTube, the Empowered Publicity YouTube channel, or empoweredpublicity.com, our official website. Feel free to be able to share episode number 83 of the Children's Book Spotlight series on Facebook or your favorite social media platforms of choice. If you are a children's author and you would like to share your inspiring story and the release of your brand new children's book, just like Miranda did here this evening, and you would like to become a featured guest on the Children's Book Spotlight series, just like Miranda did this week, feel free to connect with us at empoweredpublicity.com, or you can connect with us on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Empowered Publicity, on Twitter at empowered_PR. If you are a children's author or illustrator and you would like for us to be able to share your brand new children's book on the Story Time with Mr. Jonathan, you know where to connect us. To connect with us, you know where to find us in the process, empoweredpublicity.com or any of our favorite social media platforms. If you are an inspirational or spiritual author, in addition to a children's author, and you would like to learn more information about Empowered Publicity, how we can be of service to you into the fall, into the holiday season, if you would like to facilitate your own virtual media tour, if you would like more information on our media coaching and mentoring program, if you would like to facilitate press and media coverage, to celebrate the release of your book and to share your message in your backyard or in a city of your choosing, you know where to connect with us at empoweredpublicity.com. Let us not forget our favorite neighbor one last time. This guy behind us, he's here with us wherever we go. Mr. Rogers reminds all of us and all of you that you are perfect, you are whole, you are healthy, you are complete, that you are loved, you are special, just the way that you are. That I like you just the way that you are. Now, you know that we don't fly solo here on the Children's Book Spotlight series, so we have two sets of numbers, right? We mentioned on the Empowered Publicity bingo sheet this week, we've got the lucky numbers of 6, the lucky number of 50, and the lucky number of 83. Well, let's also add on in 143 and 243. 143 means that I love you, but of course, since Miranda joined us here this week as our special guest here in our neighborhood at Empowered Publicity, 243 means that we love you. Isn't that such a good feeling? So once again, before we hop back aboard the trolley, you can check out Miranda's brand new book, Speak Up, which is now available courtesy of our friends at Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. It's now available at Amazon.com. While there, you can leave your 5-star review if you feel guided to do so in the process, or you can check out Miranda's official website at mirandapaul.com. While you're there, if you're wondering, can I learn more about Miranda's amazingly awesome children's books? Yes, you can. I highly recommend the next go-to is Little Libraries, Big Heroes. If you want to learn about the amazing little free libraries that are all throughout the country, and the courageous story of Todd Bowl, who was the heart and the brainchild, one of the hearts, one of the children, I should say, behind the Little Free Libraries. Feel free to pick up your copy of Little Libraries, Big Heroes, because, of course, one of our favorite neighbors, John Parra, did such amazing illustrations with the book in the process. So once again, time to hop back aboard the trolley. Somehow we managed to all fit in this trolley, and it travels by beams of light as well. So we want to thank again all of you. If you happen to be new joining us this week, thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending some time. If you want to be able to be connected with us each and every Monday at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific with all new episodes of the Children's Book Spotlight series, or every Thursday evening at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific with all new episodes of the Storytime with Mr. Jonathan, feel free to like and follow Empowered Publicity on Facebook and to subscribe to Empowered Publicity's official YouTube channel. So to all of you, to the parents, to the teachers, the librarians, the educators, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the godfathers, the godmothers, every one of you, that is doing your part to be able to nurture and nourish the minds and hearts and souls of our children right now. Thank you for what it is that you are doing. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for continuing to move forward on your own paths in the process and reparenting your own inner child, to take the time to learn to love yourself even more so. And above all else, thank you for taking the time to walk home the children of the world. So from Miranda Paul, Jonathan Masiulionis, enjoy the rest of your week, and we will talk to all of you once again this forthcoming Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, with episode number 12 of the Story Time with Mr. Jonathan here at Empowered Publicity, where we'll be sharing Rulers Don't Measure. And again, I'm super excited about this. Next Monday, July the 13th, where Matthew Cordell will be joining us as our featured guest on episode number 84 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. We'll be talking about Hello Neighbor, the kind and caring world of Mr. Rogers. Until then, friends and neighbors and shining stars, have a tremendous week, and we'll talk to you once again very soon. Thanks for spending some time with us here in our neighborhood this evening and this week. Take care, everybody. We'll talk again very soon.